the very first episode of the Wicksteed Parkcast. I'm Mia.
And I'm Sean, and we're going to be talking all things Wicksteed Park.
From conservation projects and our amazing heritage
To our rides and upcoming events, we'll be covering it all.
We want to connect with you guys on a more personal level. You have supported us continuously for many, many years, and we want to get to know you. And you to get to know us as well.
We're going to give you an insight of what goes on behind the gates.
Shall we get started then, Sean?
Yes, let's go.
For our very first episode, Sean and I sat down, had a chat and tried to figure out what we're going to cover. And we thought, let's take it back to the origins of Wicksteed Park and celebrate the man who founded the home of children's play, Charles Wicksteed.
Charles's birthday is the 30th of March, so we thought it was the perfect time to celebrate all things Charles.
And it is the perfect time to celebrate Charles. He wasn't just an amazing man, was he? He was truly innovative. And we're going to be talking all things Charles and doing a deep dive into his life today. We've got some amazing guests on. We've got Connor, our Community and Heritage Coordinator, and Oliver Wicksteed. But before they both join us, we've got Ruth, our Community and Volunteer Support Officer, joining us to chat about Charles from his very first apprenticeship to founding Wicksteed Park.
Let's go chat to Ruth. Thank you for joining us on the Wicksteed Parkcast, Ruth.
Oh, hello. It's good to meet you.
It's great to have you on. We're really excited to have everyone on the podcast, and it's just so great to have you on our very first episode, isn't it? So there's a lot of things people don't know about Charles, if they actually know anything at all. But his journey started long before Wicksteed Park opened, didn't it? It started with an apprenticeship back when he was about 14.
Yes, so he was 16 when he started his apprenticeship.
16.
And I guess lots of people maybe think he was quite a young man because it seems like such a big project. But actually he was sort of, he was in his early middle age or I don't know how we describe it. But yeah, he was older. And obviously that was because he needed to have made some money before he could really acquire this much land. So I think everything that he learned through his apprenticeship and through his businesses all came together really to make the park what it is, yeah.
He lived quite a full life before Wicksteed Park, didn't he? So what kind of, what was his apprenticeship? Who did he work with?
He apprenticed at an engineering company that was involved in locomotives. So obviously that's a very sort of heavy end of engineering really. And when he left and he was 21, his friends and family helped him to set up a business. And to us now, we look at a steam plough, like a steam traction engine, and we think, oh, that's a kind of quaint, old-fashioned thing, if you like. But actually, that was the absolute cutting edge of technology, really. So he was a very innovative person. And I think to have invested that much money when he was that young, obviously his friends and family saw something in him that he was going to be a great entrepreneur as well. And then he travelled around and the steam plough would plough the fields, pulling the plough across the fields. So he obviously saw quite a lot of landscapes through England. And I think all of that, I sometimes say, I imagine him standing at the top of the hill here. And all of that, he knew he could shape the landscape because that's what he'd done in his experience. And obviously, if you've got this cutting edge technology, it's got a wonderful steam plough, but if you want to, want it mending, that's probably going to be you. He's probably going to have to be the one to mend it. So eventually, settling in Kettering, marrying a Kettering person, he started his engineering works. And that was initially to mend steam ploughs, to make parts and be able to mend steam ploughs. But eventually, the steam ploughing business went and the engineering took over with all his kind of innovations and inventions and his good business head that he actually patented those inventions so he could be the one to make some money out of them. And also that's a great way that other people know about them and they become more sort of worldwide inventions. So he invented all sorts of things, very numerous things, but the things that were very important to the park really because of him making enough money was really hydraulic saws. Lots of things he did were to do with metal bars. And we have to remember that because then we get to the era of the park. And that's when he starts another business eventually because he starts the park, he buys the land. He knows he can shape the land. He shapes the land. He makes a lake. I kind of think if I stood at the top of that hill with my wheelbarrow and my shovel, I might think that's quite ambitious, isn't it? That's quite ambitious, yeah. But we have to remember that Charles had wanted to start a park earlier in more in the town, which I think would have been had a lot less of a sort of natural feel to it in a way, because it would have been a sort of park for walks and things like that, but in town. And I often say this is the story of 3 parks, really, because the land that he bought that belonged to the hall, to Barton Hall, had also been designed by Humphrey Repton to be, if I call it a posh park, but so the sort of park that a big hall would have.
Very formal.
Yeah, formal, not necessarily open to the public. So
you're not going to be running around playing tag or anything.
That's right. So I always feel like, yes, there was 2 ideas for a park there, but it came together with this one, which is actually the perfect park, really, because it is for people, and it has got that natural element as well as the formal elements. And I think, but of course, his original idea was to have housing, low-cost housing. Above all, I think what Charles was a problem solver. So whether it was a social problem of housing or whether it was a practical problem of making something in engineering, inventing something that would work better and solve a problem, I think he was a problem solver. And that's what he did. And I think the social conscience comes from, his early family life. His father was a minister, all of those things. And I think it all came together. But after the First World War, really the recreational use of the park was what took over. So, and there he is. He's got this wonderful park.
Yeah.
What does he know loads about? Metal bars. So, people want play equipment, and what can you use to make play equipment?
Metal bars.
Yeah. So I always say, it's the story of a park, but it's also the story of metal bars. So he knew how to cut them, he knew how to shape them, and he invented all sorts of wonderful play equipment. And again, his problem solving, when people came into the park, if things weren't robust enough, he says in his writings about play equipment, it's him to make it robust enough. It's not to blame people if things do, even if they're misusing them, to damage them. So he said everything has got to be robust enough to be in the park. So his actual phrase was hooligan proof. So then he started his business making the playground equipment, and that went all over the world, So there was this huge thirst for that type of equipment, and it was very innovative. So honestly, I've always feel like his mind was always solving problems.
He's one step ahead as well.
Definitely lots of innovation, and not just in the practical things, but in his thinking as well. So when you read what he wrote about the importance of play, that is very current thinking, that people do need to be outside, they need to connect to nature, they need something positive to do in their life. It's good for their well-being, whether they're younger or older. So I think we think of those quite contemporary ideas, but he was thinking and writing about that, all those years ago. So,
how vital do you think this was for creating play and playgrounds as we know it now?
I think it was absolutely huge, because although, perhaps people had made a rope swing on a tree or something, and there were other sort of movements about play across Europe as well, I think the fact that he manufactured something that people could then see that they could have that product, they could see that product, they could actually buy that product and put it into place, it made it universal, it made it accessible and all across the world. As we know, he travelled to many continents to sell playground equipment, and I think that just shows that it was something that people wanted, and he made it easier really for people to have those playgrounds. It became a standard thing, whether it was in a public space or whoever was doing that purchasing, they could see that they could get that. In one brochure he said, this is the bench of 1,000 uses, but so far I've only thought of about 2, so
lying down and sitting.
Sit on it, maybe you shouldn't stand on it. So so I think having a product, really, having an accessible product that was robust, that people could trust. And then really, if you think, so many visitors will say, I saw that name on a playground, Wicksteed. I saw that lozenge shape with the Wicksteed logo. I think that was enormous. But I think the fact that he also wrote about why it was important, it captured people's imagination, and it made them realise that for example, it's councils, local authorities, schools or whatever that need to purchase play equipment. It did emphasise the importance of that to them. So
he really took play to that next step, and
he did.
He brought a new era of play to all of us, and we see these playgrounds everywhere. I remember growing up, going to other parks that weren't Wicksteed, but seeing the Wicksteed name there. And even though we're separate now from Wicksteed Leisure, we've still got this rich history together of all this play equipment, our playgrounds, and bringing well-being and play in a different way to people in Kettering and beyond.
That's right. I think he made it more universal, he made it more accessible, because there was a product there that could be purchased and put into place. So it didn't have to constantly be rethought out. And I think his writings made people realise it's very important. It's not an extra. You know, play could be seen as that little extra, but he showed how it was essential to people's well-being and essential to sort of society, if you like, essential to a locality, to have that facility,
Such a priority to be able to have a place where you can safely let go, have fun, feel free, and it is just so important for everyone's well-being, mentally, physically, to be outdoors and playing. And Charles just really envisioned all this and brought it to us, which is just, it's amazing that we're still here, and then playgrounds across the world kind of shaped after what he created.
That's right, because I think without the availability and the innovation of that, but coupled with the thinking, I just don't think it would have developed the way that it has. And I mean, as we say, you know, you just see it all over the world, and still Wicksteed Leisure, they're still providing that, you know, to many different countries. So it's very important. And I think one of the most important things that Charles said to me is when they said, oh, you know, people will come and they'll, you know, because I mean, the park is not just for playground games, but for, you know, football, outdoor games, you know, whether you want to walk round, run round, all of those other outdoor activities. And someone said, oh, but Charles, you know, people will ruin the grass. He said, I care more about people than grass, you know.
Yeah.
This park, for all its equipment and everything else that's in it, is about people. So, you know, to be populated by the people, Yeah. So I think it's very inspirational actually to work here really and think about that every day. Yeah.
Definitely.
He's a true inspiration, and he did achieve so much in his lifetime, and his vision and his legacy is just amazing, and the fact that we get to carry it on is a true privilege. But thank you so much for joining us, Ruth, today. It's been great hearing you talk about Charles. It's always great talking about Charles with you, and it's just been such a privilege to hear about Charles from you in our first episode.
Yeah,
Thank you so much.
He's from our history, but I think we all feel like we know him a little bit
Yeah,
as well. Like,
definitely.
He's a very real person to me, and we often think, what would Charles'
would
response
Charles do?
be?
Yeah.
What would he do? So that guides us each day what we do in the park. Yeah. Thank you.
So thank you.
So Charles wasn't just a successful inventor and entrepreneur, he was also a philanthropist who wanted to use his wealth to improve the quality of lives in people in Kettering and beyond.
We're now joined by Oliver Wicksteed, the current chairman of Wicksteed Charitable Trust. Thank you for joining us, Oliver.
Hello, this is lovely. This is really nice to do something different.
It's really exciting to have you on, and it's just great to have everyone in the park involved and chatting about something so important to us, Wicksteed Park.
That's great, because everybody, it's like a big family, isn't it?
Yeah.
Everybody cares.
Yeah.
So everybody needs to have a voice and a say. And this is a nice way for us to reach out to people too.
Yeah, and to really connect with our amazing supporters at home.
Absolutely.
So Charles had a vision to inspire and encourage play to improve the quality of lives of people in Kettering and beyond. And his kind of views really contrasted earlier thinkings about play, where it was quite segregated between boys and girls and adults and children. But at Wicksteed Park, he wanted to bring everyone together to play. Do we know why he was so dedicated to improving play, or do you have a theory as to why he had this dedication and vision for Wicksteed Park?
Yeah, we can look at what he wrote, and what we know through the family, but some things get lost over time in terms of conversations and so on. And I think one important thing to remember is that when he created, or the Wicksteed Village Trust as it was created in 1916, I think it was 68.
Yeah.
So put that into, put perspective of my age, that a lot of his life had gone. So he, throughout that life, had 68 years to form his views, the things he wanted to do. And as a sort of a hard-working young man, he focused on building a career, building a business, building an engineering company, which was incredibly successful. But he kind of observed the conditions that many of his workers were living in. And so one of the things he did was that he tried to form or get together a group of people with the town council to create a park. Ruth will be able to tell you the dates and but it didn't happen. We've got some drawings showing the view of this because he didn't think the parks should be those formal places where kids can't play, and that's what they were like. And he wanted children to be able to run around and have happy, healthy exercise and not be so restricted and disciplined all the time. And so he tried to do it through the normal route through the town council, and that didn't happen because they didn't agree with him. They didn't understand his vision. They didn't think it was good use of public money, town money, and so on. So he thought, okay, fine, I'll do it myself. And so he had, by that time, amassed a good deal of money, but had very strong views about how such money should be used, and was also really had some fairly strong views about who should own land and how society should work. And he's written books, we don't have time to go through that in detail now, but they were really interesting revolutionary ideas. But he was a philanthropist. He was a very kind man who loved the challenge. He rose to the challenge all the time, making early swings and slides out of stuff he got in the factory, using heating pipes and stuff like that. And so he wanted to make a difference. He really wanted to make a difference to people, and felt that the best use of his money, rather than going, sort of in large amounts of money going to the family and all the rest of it, the money was spent on buying land and then putting that land into trust for people. So he could see there was a problem. That's what good business people do. You find a problem, you solve it. And he did that with, hydraulic saws and gearboxes and all kinds of things, and that's how he made his money. And then he saw a problem with society. He dealt with that. I think it's remarkable.
It is amazing, and you just see through his works, like you explained, the type of person he was. He built his wealth, and then when he hit the age of 68, he went, okay, I'm actually going to use my wealth and help the people of Kettering and let the kids run wild and have play that they've not been able to have before in public.
Yeah, he said, I care more about children than I do about grass.
Wow.
And that was quite interesting,
Yeah.
because formal gardens are lovely. We older people like going to formal gardens and looking at the planting and that kind of stuff. But that's not what kids want to do.
No, they want to run free.
Exactly. And families play together.
Yeah.
Because it's really important. So he knew the importance of caring for well-being when nobody knew that expression. Nobody used that expression. He just knew there was something that wasn't right with people and the way they were living, and wanted them to play together as families and so on. And here we still are.
Yeah, it's quite ahead of his time, and it's great that we're still here providing that well-being space and a place for families to truly get together and play and have fun.
Well, yeah. And he then went on to create things like the watershed.
Yeah.
Nothing like that existed. Nowadays we look at it and think, oh, that's quite sweet, isn't it? And it is great fun. And
Yeah.
everybody has to do it. It's like a rite of passage. You've got to go on the watershed and get a bit wet. And obviously you can go to the big theme parks and spend an awful lot of money on going on huge rides and so on. Which I love roller coasters.
Me too.
Yeah, roller coasters in all over the place. But that's not what we're about. Because it's a whole different atmosphere. And he knew that even then, that it was a blend of having things that he could start to charge for, because he knew he got to cover the costs of the place if he was going to be sustained when his money and the factory didn't continue to fund the park. So there had to be that kind of balance. But it was all about fun, and it was all about health and relaxation and the families being together.
Yeah, it's lovely. So as you mentioned, Charles established the charity back in 1916, which was originally the Wicksteed Village Trust, and now the Wicksteed Charitable Trust. How important is the charity to keep Charles's legacy and vision alive?
Well, that's an interesting question. Do you know why it was called the Wicksteed Village Trust?
No.
Is that because he was going to build houses here before the war?
Yeah, it was going to be a village.
Wow.
Berkmansey Grave Garden Village. And the house at the top of where the town gate entrance is, at the top of Beach Avenue, the lodge as it's known, was the first house on site. In fact, my grandfather lived there. In fact, my father was born there. But that was an entrance to a site that was going to be, and Ruth and the archive have got the plans that were drawn for housing, all based on the amazing prefabrication system that he invented, where the buildings were essentially prefabricated but assembled on site. And we've still got bungalows here that people can see that were built like that, because the conditions where the people were living in, they had back-to-back housing with no gardens, and they weren't sanitary, and he knew that that wasn't great. He wanted people to have gardens, he wanted to have space. So his vision initially was to have housing on the site, and it went all the way down to the lake. And the car park then, it's a lovely plan, and the car park, it has car parking for 12 motors. Wow. And you think these days, how things have changed.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So, that's, but he needed to adapt, because after the First World War, the need for housing was being met by the government. Social housing became a real thing, and the government stepped up and dealt with dealing with housing problems. And Charles then modified his plans to continue to create the park, which is still about well-being and green space and so on. And there were a few bungalows at the top and the bottom of the park that were used for staff, and were there. Well, some are still there, which have been restored, as you know. And they, and he then realised fairly quickly, and Ruth can tell you the story better than I can about how he came to create play equipment, but realised it was a massive opportunity and created a worldwide business, off the back of the park, and at that age. It's just amazing.
He's truly an amazing man, and you could take so much inspiration from what he's done and his legacy and his vision and what he's built here and what we're still able to enjoy
I think
today.
we all do. Everybody, he knew there were challenges,
Yeah.
and he created the park to meet some of those challenges. He then knew the park itself would be a challenge. It was a challenge to build it. It was taking down thousands of trees, which probably would be frowned upon these days, to create the space, and creating lakes and all that kind of stuff. And then his desire to ensure that it was as accessible as possible. The document, the founding document of the trust, never said the park should be free, but it was to be used by the people of Kettering. But the free element is crucial for us, and we fight for that. And as things get more and more expensive, it gets harder and harder to do that. And so he started introducing charges for various bits and pieces, as did his daughter Hilda. And you've got to do a podcast about Hilda.
Yeah.
Oh, we've got one lined up. We'd love to have you back on to chat about Hilda.
She was an amazing, scary woman.
An absolute force.
Yes, quite remarkable. I mean, that would be very, very interesting. I've met people that knew Hilda.
Wow.
That was at an old people's home where I was doing a talk, which went very well, because at least half of them stayed awake. And then people just said, yes, I remember Hilda, and sort of being involved in so much here, and at the factory, and chaired the charity, and all the other things. So, But anyway, I don't know why we got onto Hilda. I think because her character. Well, when Charles' involvement in the park was, 15 years, something like that. And we're now, 109 since the charity was formed anyway. And that's the fact that it's still here, I think we can be very, very proud of. The fact that it's still free to access. I know people got to pay for parking, and people got to pay for a cup of coffee or whatever, but I don't need money for anywhere else. There's no magic money tree, sadly. We've got lots of magic, very expensive trees. But so his vision was for this to be here for a vast amount of time for the people, and was able to adapt as we have to, as we move forward.
Yeah, and hopefully it will be around for many, many generations to come. I know that if we have families in the future, we want to be bringing them here. It's my grandparents have memories here. My dad has memories here. It's something that we are we're so proud to have been able to come here since we were little, and we're so excited to know that we could be here for so many more generations. It's
let's hope so.
An amazing thing.
Yeah, if everybody works together, we can make sure that's the case, and that's what it's all about.
Yeah. The community, all of us coming together to keep this amazing park here forever.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you so much for joining us, Oliver. Is there anything else you'd like to touch on before we go, or do you think you've got Charles all out your system?
Charles, it's funny that there are many memories that have been passed on to me about Charles, but obviously I didn't meet Charles because I wasn't around in 1931 when he passed away. And I think the way that his passing was marked was truly remarkable. If you see the photographs of the procession of cars from Kettering back out to the park, just blocked the whole area. The massive amount of respect that people had for him, because he gave so much, is I think something that we as the human race can be proud of. There are people that come along from time to time and can be incredibly high-profile people. And we can look around the world at the political situation at the moment, and it's intriguing. But are there many people that actually do as much good as Charles did? And the one thing I've always wanted to do was for us to have a statue of Charles here. And I tried to do it through various fundraising opportunities and that kind of thing. And we're not giving up. We've got some fantastic, our new fundraiser, Ali, is going to be working on all kinds of things. And being for people to be able to have their photograph taken next to a statue of Charles and to celebrate what he did and share that widely, because that's great publicity, of course, as well, with modern social media and so on. But because we mustn't forget what one person did that we all benefit from and gave us a fantastic opportunity and set certain things in train that we continue to cherish now, because that's what's really important, isn't it? You know, that it isn't the most sensible business model. It isn't the most, it's not going to be a huge money-making machine. It can't be, because of the size of the estate and free access. But isn't it precious? And I think if people often speak to me and say, "What do you think Charles would think now?" And some people say, "Boy, he'd be spinning in his grave because you have to pay for parking and coffee." And okay, well, people are perfectly entitled to their view. Yeah. And often people criticise us, and they're right. You know, don't we all? Don't get everything right. But the memory of or remembering why Charles did what he did and why it's so important for us to fight for that, working together as a team, so which might involve fundraising and the community coming together, which is very much a thing we're doing at the moment. Just simply because we want as many people as possible to be able to come to the park and access it free of charge for the benefit of their mental health and well-being, as it did during the pandemic, as it did during the when it was up for the community and soldiers during the Second World War and so on. It's always stepped up, when needed.
It's been here for the community.
So that the point about Jerry the dog, in the Rose Garden, lovely. That inscription is lovely, but there isn't one of Charles. And I think they should be.
And hopefully within the next year or few years or however long we'll get that statue of Charles in our park. It will truly envision everything and bring Charles.
We could not do everything as quickly as we'd like to here.
Yeah.
Simply because of the cost of running the place. The sheer size of it. But that doesn't mean we don't do it.
Yeah.
We've had fantastic support from the National Lottery Heritage Fund. I mean, they have been amazing.
Yeah, truly amazing.
And they're helping us now to help make the place resilient for the future whilst protecting free access. So, and that will involve looking at all kinds of projects to benefit the community. And that's where we're going, and that's where we'll continue. And it might be a fight sometimes, but boy, is it worth it.
Yeah, I think so.
The fight will always be worth it to keep Wicksteed Park here.
Absolutely. And we've got you now approaching a whole different demographic, which is brilliant, thank you. Because, you've got a whole different perspective to, the old people like me. And that's so important, because it was really created for, the younger generation in this case. So,
we really want to help bring that to our generation.
Yes.
Keep it going.
Well, thank you. And it's important that we understand what you want.
Definitely.
Because then we can make sure it's relevant. That's what this whole survey we've been doing recently has been all about. Give people a voice.
Yeah. And that's the beauty of our community and our amazing team, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Definitely.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, it's been very insightful chatting to you.
It's been lovely. It's been lovely.
And thank you again for joining us.
After speaking to Ruth and Oliver about Charles's amazing life, his innovations, his achievements from when he was 16 starting his apprenticeship to founding the park, his humanitarian outlook on life, his vision, his legacy, I feel like I've learned so much that I didn't know before. Don't you agree?
Yeah, there was so much I didn't know. And hearing about his amazing achievements has made me truly appreciate everything he's done for the park.
Literally, there's so much to consider, and it really puts it into perspective what we're working towards. We want to keep Wicksteed Park here for a long, long time, not just for ourselves, but for the community. I mean, we both grew up coming here as well, and my family did. I know so many people who have childhood memories at the park.
Yeah, everyone.
And you have baby photos at the park that you showed us when you started.
We won't mention those.
Maybe we'll bring them out next episode. But it's just, It's our amazing Wicksteed Park team and then our amazing community, you guys at home who are continuously supporting us. That's kind of what has made it possible for us to continue Charles's legacy and vision until 2025 and hopefully for a long, long time afterwards.
Definitely. One of the people involved in this is Connor McIntyre, our Community and Heritage Coordinator. Let's go catch up with her now.
So we're currently outside in the playground and we're joined by Connor McIntyre, our Community and Heritage Coordinator. Thank you for joining us on the Wicksteed Parkcast, Connor.
Oh, thanks for having me.
We're so excited to have you on such a beautiful day in such a beautiful location, our wonderful traditional playground.
So we're currently swinging in the playground, where millions of people have played, adventured and had fun since Charles founded the park. Throughout the park we can see glimpses of our heritage and what Charles originally put in the park. What can people expect to see in our park that people may have enjoyed back when we opened?
Well, all of our playground equipment that is this sort of like dark green and red, like the swings that we're swinging on right now, are all sort of recreations of some of Charles Wicksteed's original designs from the 1920s. Obviously there are some differences. We have had to make some changes for modern health and safety standards. But other than that, we try to keep them as original as possible to celebrate that history.
Yeah, I've had so many comments on social media talking about how much more fun it was before all the health and safety rules come into play, but I'm glad we can all play safely now on our safe swings and our safe, lovely playground. Might have a little less risk and a little less fun, but I'm just glad we're not breaking bones. So, Charles had such a humanitarian outlook and he had this amazing legacy and vision, and we work on a lot of community projects, a lot which are actually funded by the National Lottery Heritage Fund.
Yes.
Could you tell us a little bit more about these projects and how they support our community kind of in line with Charles's vision and legacy?
Well, external funding like the National Lottery Heritage Fund is basically one of the biggest reasons why we can stay open for free to the public. And that was Charles's main vision, was to have this open green space where people could live healthy, active lifestyles, and it would be accessible to anybody, no matter where their social standing. One of the biggest projects that I've worked on for the community was something that we've called the Beanstalk, which is a piece of playground equipment in our playground. And it's coming up on just about a year old now. But we tasked the kids of Northamptonshire to send us in some playground designs and to see what they wanted to see in our playground. And it ended up being an 11-year-old named Mia.
Named twins.
From Northampton, who actually learned 3D modeling software in order to put in her submission for it. And it was inspired by the Grimm fairy tale Jack and the Beanstalk. I think it's a Grimm fairy tale anyway.
I think it is, yeah. If not, don't quote us on that.
Yeah, don't quote me on that. But yeah, so once we got the design and we chose it, we worked with Wicksteed Leisure in order to make it a reality and have it in the park.
It was a whole Wicksteed affair, wasn't it?
It was, yes.
All three of us actually got to go to the factory to watch it being made. It was just insane to...
So interesting.
And I can imagine if Charles was here, he'd go, what on earth is going on? Seeing all these, like... Because he was ahead of his time when he was inventing and creating.
Oh yeah, he was a trailblazer for sure.
But it must just... It's taken like leaps and bounds, like it's so far advanced now. I remember seeing them spraying the paint on, but it was a powder and I was just absolutely gobsmacked.
Yeah.
But it is just so amazing that the community is still so involved and still so for the community.
Yeah.
What other projects have there been that you've been like particularly involved in that you think line up with his vision, his legacy, just his amazing humanitarian help in life?
Gosh, there's been so many things that have happened in recent years. One of the things that we've started reviving is National Play Day. Granted, it is a national celebration of children's play, but it's something that we wanted to get involved in every single year, just to show like how committed we are to being the home of children's play.
And it's been bigger and better every year. I remember last year it was amazing. We had live entertainment, we had even more people than the year before, and it's just, we're really developing on that, aren't we?
Yeah,
bring play to more and more people in the future, more diverse play as well.
Yeah, because play sort of evolves and develops every single year, how kids choose to have fun. But a lot of times, some of the most simple stuff is what will stand the test of time, like swings and slides and things like that.
Well, I think it's about time that we actually go enjoy the playground before we head back inside to finish off the podcast. Thank you so much for joining us, Connor. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you about our lovely playground.
You as well.
I can't believe we're almost at the end of our first episode.
Time truly does fly when you're having fun, and I've had so much fun today on our first episode of the Wicksteed Parkcast. So exciting. In sync with twinsies. But we're not quite over yet. We actually need to tell you guys a little bit more about the events that are upcoming at Wicksteed Park.
So every Thursday we have Crafternoon in the Learning Centre for £5 per person.
Guys, it's only £5 and
Only
it's
£5.
so worth it. We have had so much fun at the Crafternoon sessions.
Definitely. And Easter is back at Wicksteed Park this April with our Easter extravaganza.
It's a full park opening, obviously subject to maintenance and weather conditions, but I'm so excited. I really want to go on the water shoot. I've been missing it so much whilst I've been closed.
Definitely.
What are you looking forward to going on?
Probably Dino Valley.
Oh, can't have a full park open
No,
without going on Dino Valley.
Definitely not.
For a bit of content as well, it's great fun.
I hope the queues aren't too big.
Yeah, hopefully the queues aren't too bad. And then also in April, we have some pretty magical. We have Magical Afternoon at the Musicals. It's a bit of a tongue twister, so thank God I got it. But that's a spellbinding afternoon of afternoon tea, musical numbers. It's going to be a really amazing show.
So good.
And then in May, we're taking you back to a truly radical and bodacious era. I know my 80s slang. With a back to 80s party night with DJ Big Bopper. It's going to be a party you don't want to miss.
You can find out more and book online at wicksteedpark.org.
Make sure you get there soon because the tickets will go. You don't want to miss out. It's going to be so much fun.
So much fun.
And the rest of the year, we've got a huge lineup of exciting activities and events. So you've got to keep an eye on our website and our socials.
And now our podcast.
And our podcast, yeah. So make sure you subscribe or follow us on Spotify and check back every month for updates on our next episode. But speaking of socials, make sure you head over to our Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, TikTok and Instagram for @Wicksteed Park. Connect with us, get chatting with us, send us your questions, your opinions, or you can connect with our Wicksteed Heritage pages on Facebook and LinkedIn. We really want to get chatting to you guys, don't we?
Yeah,
we want to get
definitely.
more connected, we want to hear your opinions.
Anything you want us to talk about either.
Yeah, if you have any questions you want us to talk about on the podcast, shoot them our way. We're open, we want to get chatting, we want to connect, don't we?
Yes, definitely. It's been a truly amazing first podcast episode.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining us, guys. We really appreciate everyone that's been
So
supporting
much.
us across all our platforms.
And just make sure to keep your eyes peeled on our socials for Wicksteed Parkcast updates.
Thank you again for joining
I'll
us.
see you next time.
Bye.